Hey, what's going on, guys? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today I'm going to be putting together my dream PC. Now this has actually been a long time coming. The last time I built a PC specifically for me was about 3 years ago. It consisted of an 8th gen i5 CPU, and since then I've been wanting to build something, pretty powerful. But with PC part availability and GPU prices, it's been hard to do, so I've kind of pick and chose everything over the last few months, and I finally got everything together to go ahead and build something up. Starting out with the motherboard here, this is the new ASRock Z590 formula. This is a great little motherboard here. It's really built for overclocking, and the CPU I chose to use in this build is an Intel i9-11900K. 8 cores, 16 threads with a base clock of 3.5 GHz and a boost up to 5.3. When it comes to RAM, I went with 32 gigabytes of Team Force Vulkan running at 3200 MHz. I originally wanted to do 64, but this only has 2 DIMMs, so I just went with 32, which is going to be way more than enough for me. As for storage, I'm still waiting on my other drives, but I figured I'd go ahead and put this together. I opted for a 1TB Inland NVMe SSD, nothing fancy here. And as for my extra drives I'm waiting on, just two 2TB Western Digital Blues, bringing it up to a total of 5 TB in this PC. When it comes to the case, I actually chose something really simple. I personally really like the design. This is the Lian Li Landcool 205. It's actually a really inexpensive case when it comes to these Lian Li cases, and we should have plenty of room for everything I need to put inside of here. The power supply is an EVGA 750G3, and to tell you the truth, I think I'm right on the edge there with all the parts I chose, but when it comes down to it, with no overclocking right now, I should definitely be able to get away with the 750 watt power supply. So I've got mostly everything in place here. I've got the motherboard mounted, my RAM installed, the CPU, power supply, all the cables routed. I do need to clean it up around back, but it's getting pretty close. Now to cool this 11900K, I opted for the NZXT X53. The main reason I didn't go with the 360mm is the case I chose here. I can only go up to a 240, and I had to mount it up top given GPU clearance. And speaking of the GPU, I'm going with the GALAX RTX 3080 Ti. Now this has a little booster fan that can actually be put on the back plate to help cool it down, but I don't have enough room in this case because of my USB 3.0 plug and the motherboard layout. But once it's all slammed together, it looks something like this. I don't think it's too flashy. We do have that RGB on the card and the motherboard itself, but I didn't go with any RGB fans or anything like that. It does have that infinity mirror on the Kraken cooler, a little bit of RGB on the GPU, and we have that RGB poking out behind the motherboard. Now as for the full setup, this isn't my main gaming desk. I just kind of set it up here to give you a look at it. And when it comes to the monitor I use, I've actually had this for about 2 years. It's a BenQ EW3280U. This is a 32-inch 4K HDR monitor. Personally, really big fan of this. It only does 60 Hz, but it does have phenomenal sound built in. When it comes to the keyboard, this is newer to the market. It's been out for about a month, and I've been using it with my other rig. This is the GALAX Stealth STL01. Great mechanical keyboard, RGB built in, and we have that palm rest already ready to go. And the mouse is kind of a matching pair with this keyboard. It's the new Slider 01 from GALAX. Like I mentioned, I've been using these for the past month and they've worked out really well with my other rig, but I'm super excited to test this thing out. And on paper, this looks like the most powerful PC that I was ever able to build or use. And the first thing I want to do here is run some benchmarks, and then we're going to get right into gaming because it was really built for that. So first on the list, we have Geekbench 5 coming in with a single core of 1668 and a multi of 10,195. Looking really good on the single and multi, and I expected this with a newer i9. When it comes to Cinebench R23, total multi-core score, 15,462. Now it's time to move over to some GPU benchmarks with 3D Mark, and first up we have Night Raid with a 71,440. Firestrike, 32,896, and finally, Time Spy with a 17,276. So yeah, I mean, on paper with these benchmarks, it definitely looks like a beast of a system, but let's see how it really games. So here we have Call of Duty Warzone 4K high settings, and in the settings, this was just the highest preset that I could go to. It's performing really well. I expected we'd get good performance out of this, and by the end of my run, I got an average of 106 FPS. I got 9 more games I want to test here, and I'm going to go ahead and plug this into my game capture just to make it easier. We have Forza Horizon 4 4K Ultra looking really good here. I got an average of 128 FPS, so I was actually expecting a little more out of it, but we are at 4K. Next up, we have Doom Eternal 4K Ultra Nightmare preset with RTX on. I got an average of 103 FPS. When it comes to GTA 5, it's still one of my favorite games of all time. Here it is, 4K, very high settings, were maxed out here, and I got an average of 132 FPS out of this. I was really hoping that this game would perform well, and as you can see here, I mean, it's going to be fully playable, maxed out at 4K. Dirt 5, 4K, ultra settings, no resolution scaling or anything like that. We got an average of 88 FPS. So this is one I definitely wanted to throw in, and you might notice that the FPS is kind of stuck at 57. There was nothing I could do about this. It's a little odd. It's not an issue with Afterburner. It's the game itself. I tried all kinds of settings to get it up to 60, and I'm sure it will run at 60, but I'm working with a little bug here that kind of sticks it at 57. Either way you look at it, we're at 4K, totally maxed out at Ultra, and it's running great. Red Dead Redemption 2 also did really well. 4K Ultra with the little slider or the preset, it's all the way maxed out. And with this one here, we had a minimum of 45, a maximum of 87, and an average of 68.
Fast, Roach. Let's go!
I was really hoping for a little more out of Cyberpunk 2077. Here it is, 4K, the Ultra RTX preset with DLSS off. We got an average of 24 FPS, and for the price of a PC like this, I think we should be getting better performance. But as soon as we turn DLSS on, we get much better performance here, and I had an average of 59 FPS. I was hoping it would stick at 60, and as you can see, it does go up and down from there. But by the end of my run here, in my Afterburner logs, we had an average of 59, which is still pretty decent, but I was expecting a lot more out of this. And finally, Microsoft Flight Simulator. This was actually really disappointing. I thought for sure that we'd get way better performance out of this, and if you drop the settings down or the resolution to like 1440p, I'm sure you can, but I tested it at the Ultra preset, 4K, and I got an average of 31 FPS. And it just goes to show you how demanding this game can really be. On my channel, I'm usually testing out smaller PCs, and one thing I always like to do is just test total power consumption drawn from the wall using a kilowatt meter. With this one here, at idle, 86 watts, average 4K gaming, 468 watts, and the maximum that I could get this to pull from the wall, keep in mind this is not overclocked, we're all at stock speeds here, was 686 watts with that 3080 Ti, and all 8 cores and 16 threads on that CPU totally maxed out. So it's far from a low power consumption PC, and with some overclocking, I think we could definitely reach about 750 watts with this thing. So obviously, if you build something like this, you're going to get great performance. We're using high-end parts in this machine, and I'm definitely not blind to the fact that it's really hard to get a hold of GPUs right now. Ever since NVIDIA released the RTX 3080 and 3090, I've been trying to get my hands on one, even the 3070. The only one that I've been able to come across is the 3060, so it took me this long to get one of these for my personal build. And I've been really patient about it. You know, I keep an eye out on eBay, but the scalpers are absolutely crazy. And yeah, I mean, I've just really been patient about waiting and waiting and waiting until I can find something. And it's been a little while coming. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's been 3 years, about 3.5 years since I built my own personal gaming PC. and after just kind of waiting it out, I was finally able to do it. But yeah, I mean, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Really appreciate you watching. You know, I completely understand that you won't go out and build one of these specifically for emulation, but that's not going to stop me from making a video. So definitely keep an eye on the channel. I want to see how high we can go with PS3, Switch, Xbox 360, and even Xbox. I have a feeling that we're going to get some amazing performance. If there's anything else you want to see running on this machine, or if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. But that's it for this one, and like always, thanks for watching.